Anyway, we should probably wrap up and soon, but you've asked all kinds of interesting things. We've chatted about a pretty broad range of different kinds of topics. Do I sense that there's sort of a one last question here, or did we already do the one last question?
There is. Your feeling is right.
Yeah. So we as at the end we have a section that we call overrated or underrated. So we give you a topic or a statement, and you just give us, underrated or overrated. It's a fun section. Okay.
You mean you will give me a topic?
Yeah, or
okay.
or a
Well,
statement.
please go ahead.
Yeah.
First one, which I would like to know your thoughts about, is Nobel Prize. Do you consider
Overrated or underrated?
Yeah.
Anything for which there is a prize is a thing where the most interesting period of its history is probably over. In other words, if there is a field where there's a prize for that field, it means there's a well-defined field, and it means kind of the foundational things are already laid. I mean, I think I have many friends who've won Nobel Prizes. Sometimes it's like they did a bunch of work when they were young, and it's kind of like, wait 40 years and then they'll win a Nobel Prize. And it's sometimes it's actually been very negative for their careers, because
Really?
because they kind of like, check mark, I did my science thing. Now, I've got nothing more I can do. I'm never going to top that thing, and I'm just going to wait around, and then I'll get this prize. And I have to say, one friend of mine who won a Nobel Prize, maybe, I don't know, he'd been waiting around for years, okay, for this. I happened to see him, and he has, in his office, he has a box that's labeled Nobel shit. And I said, what is that? He says, it's all the stuff I got when I went to this Nobel Prize, ceremony type thing. And he kind of hated it. So it was sort of an interesting dynamic. So I think it's prizes, you have to understand, prizes are usually more for the giver than for the receiver. So, Alfred Nobel had his reasons for setting up this prize. Mm-hmm. He's mostly dead by the time it really got going. But it's something where I'm always interested, occasionally, actually, I used to win more prizes when I was younger than I do now. And I'm actually fearing the time when I'll start to win all kinds of prizes, because that means people think kind of it's all over, right? It's kind of like
the end of an era.
Well, it's all over as in, and sort of everything's become well defined enough that it's like, there's a prize for this, there's a prize for that. But I think it's and it's somehow, I'm not a big, again, it's been something, so I would definitely say overrated on that one. There was a period of time when these, which I sort of amused me, there was a period of time when the Ig Nobel Prize, which was this thing about sort of goofy discoveries people have made, got more press than the actual Nobel Prize, and for good reason, because a lot of the actual Nobel Prizes in things like physics were pretty dull. I mean, they were like, I've barely even heard of that discovery. I don't particularly care about it. Now, things have changed in different fields. Like in biology, for example, there are really interesting discoveries getting made all the time there. And that's a place where there's a lot more sort of energy, I would say, generated there. But yeah, so I'm not a big, I think that the main statement is, by the time there's a prize for something, it's kind of, the thing is well defined. I had this friend named Benoit Mandelbrot, who's the guy who invented fractals, who was just obsessed with winning prizes for things. And, he campaigned for years to win a Nobel Prize in physics, in economics, and whatever. And I was like, Benoit, why do you care? The thing is that the reason, if there was a prize for fractals, and there may be a prize for fractals now, I don't know, that's kind of a sign that field is now well defined, and sort of the foundational stuff is done.
Right.
It's more interesting, I think, in my particular things I find interesting, to do the foundational stuff than to do the things once the thing is on its track. Very long answer. Try another one. Maybe it'll be a shorter.